right, greetings everybody. So we'll start with the video in just a sec because I see, thank you for everybody being here. My name is Dave Margolius, Director of Public Health City of Cleveland, and I'm going to introduce Christina Yoka, our Chief of Air Quality Outreach for the Division of Air Quality, and Yvette Mitchell, our Environmental Program Manager for the Division of Air Quality, an indoor and outdoor air quality expert. Yvette and Christina are going to lead a presentation about the feedback we've been getting so far in our community engagement for our air pollution control code update. I'm going to sit down to finish my intro here. That's it. So then I'm going to back off. So the air code, the air pollution code, is from 1977, and it's in our City of Cleveland ordinance. 1977. And part of the reason it hadn't been updated in all that time was that we had really good state and federal regulation to make sure that there is kind of forward-thinking pollution reduction. But for obvious reasons, we need to make sure we've got strong local codes to protect our air quality, to protect our children in the city of Cleveland. And so this team has been working for about 2 years now to update the air code, working with many of you on different ideas. And they've done a series of community engagement meetings over the past month or so, and including virtual and bilingual and all sorts of great engagement. And today is our plan to engage with you all to get your feedback, to see how close we are to being able to introduce this. It's 89 pages, so when it does get introduced, hopefully later this spring, it's going to be a lot. And so I want to make sure that everybody's had ample time to review and contribute, so that when the time is right, we can all be proud of what we built together. So with that, I'm going to bring up Christina and Yvette, and we'll play the video. Sure.
And I'm Christina Yoka. Yes.
Discuss proposed updates to the city's air pollution control ordinances, which have remained largely unchanged since 1977. The proposed revisions aim to address modern environmental challenges, integrate technological advancements, and prioritize health and overburdened neighborhoods. Key changes include requiring all city departments to establish emission control action plans for air quality emergencies, enhancing enforcement mechanisms for facility noncompliance, and expanding services to improve indoor air quality. Residents and stakeholders were encouraged to participate in these meetings to learn about the proposed changes and provide feedback.
It makes me hopeful that this conversation is a part of a larger project to improve the air quality. I think it's an overall goal. What really made me hopeful and excited about the community will be a part of the innovative change for the city of Cleveland. Just to hear what's possible, assessments being done. It sounds like a cumulative impact is a tool of environmental justice to make sure we are naming exactly where the air quality is horrible and being able to make that difference in that particular area. So I think that's a good thing. Our children with asthma, something growing up with, and now we have an opportunity to name where this is occurring in very big areas, and hopefully do something about it.
All right, excuse me. All right, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for pulling up that video. What I am going to walk you through today is the same information that we've been presenting to the public over the past month and a half or so. So what I would like you guys to see are some of the major changes that we're proposing, and I also would like you to see what have we been communicating to the community members when we have gone out and hosted these meetings. So first off, why are we even doing this? I think Director Margolius started that this code has not been updated since 1977. It has been 50 years since there's been a major revision to the local air pollution code. And although we have had good federal legislation over those 50 years, we now need to take a step to more directly impact what's going on in our neighborhoods. So the federal rules, the federal regulations have made a lot of progress, but there's still more work that we need to do. And the approach that we're taking is looking at how our neighborhoods impacted. This slide is something I'm sure we have presented to this community before, but when we talk about why we're doing this, we're also looking at what is the health of the community? Where do we see their health concerns? Where are their problems? And where do we see disparities? And as we have said before, the pediatric asthma rates in the city of Cleveland are not good. There are certain communities that the pediatric asthma is 23 to 25%. The national average is 8%. And that is why is that happening? And it's also not happening in every single neighborhood. There's only certain neighborhoods that we're seeing that level. We have consistently, because of our high asthma rates, because of exacerbations, because of emergency room visits, been on the Asthma Capital's top 10 list of the hardest places to live in the nation because of dealing with asthma rates. And that's not a distinction we want. And so what we're trying to do is look at where are these problems and try to address them specifically within the neighborhoods. Now, we have been working on this very actively for the past 2 years, but it didn't start just 2 years ago. I want to talk a little bit about what our process was for developing this. The very first thing is that for the past couple years, we were very fortunate to have technical assistance from US EPA on something called cumulative impacts. They have guided us, they've sent us directions, they've put us in contact with other cities for how have they addressed the similar types of problems that we're facing. We also held in 2019 stakeholder meetings. So we did have community organizations come together, industry, come together and just share their ideas and their concerns related to air quality. Our outreach team. So we've got 2 of our outreach team members here today, myself and Yvette, but we also have 5 other members on our team. Over the past 2 years, we've spoken to about 10,000 residents. And when we speak to residents, we are listening to what are the air quality questions that they're bringing to us, what are their concerns, what are the most common types of questions, and then we're trying to take what is it that the community tells us and be able to find a way to address it. Through the Clean and CLE project, which is, again, a US EPA funded project, we held a series of community meetings last year. And part of that was submitting recommendations for where air quality sensors should go. We received 80 recommendations from the community. And when they submitted those recommendations, we did look at, well, why are they submitting this recommendation? What are the concerns that they're bringing? And so we incorporated some of that into this as well. Again, like I mentioned, the technical support from US EPA, and then also our air quality complaints. When residents submit an air quality complaint to us, what are the things that they're saying? So this is just a table just kind of showing you what are the most common things that we hear about air quality. I know the writing is a little small, but the bar on the left, the most common complaint that we get are odors, then followed by open burning, followed by indoor air quality. That's going to be, it might not be necessarily something that we handle within our division, and then fugitive dust. We looked at data from 2021 to 2024 and extracted that data. And ultimately, this resulted in about 500 complaints that we analyzed. And that's going to be a little bit different than numbers that you've received before because these are unique complaints. So this is like one address, what were they submitting to us? And then just to kind of see where in the city of Cleveland, what are the top concerns, here's just a map just showing you in the different wards, what are residents bringing to our attention. The blue and the pink, that represents odors. The little fire, that represents open burning. The little house, that's indoor air quality. And then the little car, that's fugitive dust. So as you can see, odors are a big concern throughout the city of Cleveland, and it is something that gets submitted to us. And of course, indoor air quality and open burning. These are the concerns that residents are bringing to us. And then I know this slide is a little bit busy, but this is, again, looking at ward. How do the complaints break down by ward? The greenish color, that's asbestos. The yellow is fugitive dust. Purple is indoor air quality. So as you can see, based off the data that we had, Ward 3 had the highest complaints, and fugitive dust was the biggest concern that was brought to us in Ward 3. All right, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about how this was developed. It was based off of what do we currently have in our, what are the complaints, what have we heard from residents, but then also reviewing other practices that have been put in place. As Director Margolius mentioned, this legislation is 90 pages long. So I'm not going to be able to go over every single thing that, I know, I just tend to exaggerate, I guess. Right, right. So there's a lot in there, but these are the key things that are the biggest changes that we're proposing. There are a lot of like just technical things. Again, a code that was written in 1977, there's going to be technology that wasn't even being used at that time. There's units of measurement that weren't being used. So there was a technical review that had to get done. But there are 8 key things, and I'm going to walk you through those in terms of the biggest changes. The very first thing in terms of what we're looking at is this idea of cumulative impacts. Cumulative impacts is the concept that your health is not just related to one thing. Your health is related to a whole host of things that are happening in the environment. So that's environmental stressors, that's social demographics, that's a wide range of things. So the very first thing is that we have added a definition for what cumulative impacts is, where it's looking at the environmental conditions, it's looking at nuisances, and it's looking at all kinds of stressors that are in the community. And so that is the foundation for how this proposal was developed. And it's going to have implications because based off of that, we will have specific recommendations. This is also a map that we've shared before because this was developed with the Clean and CLE project. And this is taking that concept of cumulative impacts, and this specifically looked at environmental stressors and social demographics. Social demographics because there are certain populations that are more susceptible to the impacts of air pollution, and did do a ranking system. So the yellow, that's going to be the lowest impact. The orange, that's more the middle ground, and the 8 is the highest. And we do have the methodology for how this was developed. All right, so going into what the actual changes are based off of this data. The very first thing is the development of a health impact report. So this is a document that we would develop every 5 years that is based off of environmental data. It's based off of stressors in the community. It's a look at where are there sources of air pollution, and then also incorporating community concerns into that. So this health impact report would be essential for how would we look at cumulative impacts in the specific neighborhoods. It is currently, the way it's proposed is that we would develop this within 1 year of passing the legislation. And it's important because this is more transparency coming from us as the regulatory agency within the city of Cleveland. And it allows us to look at over time, where are we seeing population health change? So are we still seeing the same neighborhoods again and again and again, always with these disparate health conditions? The second thing is how do we do our installation and modification permits? If you're a facility in the city of Cleveland, there are installation permits and there are operating permits. So what we're proposing is that for those communities that are in the highest ranked neighborhoods, which are the 8 to 10 under this proposal, is that there would be additional information that they would have to submit along with their permit application. So this would be a more detailed analysis of the actual source that is going in. And the other key thing is that it would require information on their vehicles and on their traffic. Right now, that's not something that we take information on. And when we look back at some of the resident concerns, vehicle traffic is something that is consistently brought up. So this allows us to take that information and really see at a neighborhood level, what are the sources of air pollution and what are the types of pollution that are occurring. And so this would be just an additional form that they would have to create. The third thing are these ideas of a health impact assessment. A health impact assessment is where you take a look at what is the emission unit or what is the source of air pollution that's going in and what is the full impact that that could have on the community. So what this would require is that for facilities under certain conditions would have to submit do an entire health impact report that includes air dispersion modeling, so seeing how far out into the community the impact is. It would have to address community concerns, and again, look at where are there risks. How could this potentially impact the health of the resident? This would not be with every single permit application. This would be just in those neighborhoods that are the worst off right now, so those 10s, and it would just be for the largest facilities at this point in time. So there's 3 things that I have up there: synthetic minors, FEPDOs, and Title Vs. Those are classifications that refer to our facilities that are the highest emitters. Fourth, our installation and operation fees. So currently, under the code, we are authorized to charge double what an operating fee is. And we have not put together a specific proposal for installation fees at this time, but that's something that's open for recommendations. But then operation fees. Operation fees are required on an annual basis. And the way it currently works is that once a year, we send out invoices based off the information that we have on file, and then the facility is required for paying those fees. We are currently looking at, these fees have not been updated since 2003. So that is the only update we've had to this code. So it's been over 20 years, and the current proposal is to double the fees. And what that actually means in terms of impact is that we currently have some facilities that are paying $12.50. There would be a minimum fee of $100 per facility, and then the other fees basically are doubling. And what that amounts to is that the median fee that a facility will pay is about $180. There are outliers, but about $180 is the median fee. And then I just wanted to kind of give you a breakdown of where they are. The table is accurate based off of wards, so showing what the current per ward that we're bringing in, and then the new fee on the right side, that is also correct. Please disregard the bar graph. I apologize, but when I made it up to it, the values shifted, so that's not correct. So I do have an updated bar graph, but the values are correct. So again, just trying to be able to show you where in the neighborhoods, and these fees are based off of the size of the facility and their potential to emit. All right, so then the next thing is that currently what we're proposing is that the fees, when they're generated, they go into the City of Cleveland General Operating Fund. They have the potential to bring in about $140,000 a year. Under this proposal, that would go up to about $300,000 a year. And what we're proposing is that those fees be used specifically for emission reduction activities, so that we're then taking those fees that are generated by the facilities and using it towards activities that reduce air pollution in those neighborhoods. And we see that as being a couple different ways. That could be to grants to facilities to upgrade their equipment. So is there a better technology that they could be using and we can support them in decreasing their emissions? That could be to community groups that have demonstration projects or things that they know of in their community that would help them mitigate the impacts. So if they think, perhaps there's tree barriers, that comes up all the time. If a community feels that a tree barrier would help them, can we help offset the cost of putting that in so that we're reducing the impact? And then we're also looking at mitigation activities in the home. I'll talk about indoor air quality in a moment here, but one of the most common things that we get asked about are having air purifiers in the home. So then can we also provide these types of services to residents where we can help them offset the impact of air pollution? Okay, so the next is I just mentioned indoor air quality. This would be to formally establish our indoor air quality program. Yvette was brought on in 2018, and she has led the efforts of establishing our indoor air quality program. But this would formalize it. It would also, this formalizes that we have the authority to enter into a home upon the resident inviting us in. And then we would also want indoor air quality resources to be eligible for those emission reduction and mitigation funds. Vehicle idling, I got 2 more, and then those are the biggest changes. Vehicle idling, this is something that comes up all the time, and I will be quite honest and transparent. It is something that is near and dear to me in not a good way. We get a lot of complaints where there are facilities that have a lot of heavy-duty, medium-duty vehicles idling on their property because they are waiting for their day's work to start. There are existing anti-idling code on the book. These are very challenging to enforce. And so what we're proposing is that facilities would be responsible for managing the anti-idling ordinance for vehicles that are on their property. So this would be their work trucks or vendors. And the way we envision that this would work in terms of enforceability is if we get a complaint from a resident, we'd be able to go out, we would observe it, and if we can demonstrate that, yes, this did happen, we would start with a warning with the facility and try to work with them in implementing measures. What this does is it allows us, instead of taking the city with as large as it is and having cars that are idling everywhere, we're able to have a more targeted enforcement approach, and we're targeting vehicles that are going to be the most harmful to public health. All right, and then last code change that we're proposing. Emergency episodes. 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, when those fires came through, we all experienced that. And one of the things that we're proposing is that the City of Cleveland departments have to have an action plan in place for when emergency episodes occur. And that action plan is intended for both protecting the workforce, and it's also intended to reduce our impact. So for the Division of Air Quality, we already have some of these things in place in terms of, do we have to conduct an inspection that day? And we'll keep our staff in. Are there meetings that we can hold virtually instead of actually going out? So again, the purpose of this is to have city departments also have an emergency action plan for how will they deal with emergency events like this. Hopefully, we could then work with other businesses that are in the area that are major employers to adopt similar types of plans. But the enforcement, the regulatory side of this would be just for City of Cleveland facilities. And then just the last thing, the Clean and CLE Air Quality Dashboard has been made available. This is now on the City of Cleveland Open Data Portal. So when we start looking at like air quality in specific neighborhoods, this just gives a little bit more information on where those sensors are located, and it's something that residents can now access for real-time air quality data. Okay, I know that was a whole lot of information that I just shared. Councilman, I've done this presentation, I think, like 8 times now. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it.
You're like a musician that has the score in front of the musician. You have the score in front of you. So you don't have to look at the conductor that often because you know the score already. Mm-hmm. And he was like, almost word for word. Wow, man, that cracked me up. That cracked me up. So you want to create a fund that goes into the general fund. I think you already have that. And you need to charge people in certain areas, like in Ward 9, Ward 5, Ward 8. But it's different issues, because what might affect the residents in Ward 9 in a certain neighborhood really would not affect people in Ward 5. But if we have some working capital to work with, then you can get resources that you might need, like equipment, people, and supplies, so we can deal with in those certain areas. And then we can monitor and control, is what you're saying. So if there's an issue or concern in Ward 9, then we could start hitting the issue. But you never mentioned how to deal with the root cause of it. Like you mentioned the emission from cars or the indoor air from houses. But what caused these things? We want to monitor and control it, but we don't know what caused this to happen. And that's where I'm at. Because it was never mentioned in your piece.
So, Councilman, we do know that the major sources of air pollution in the City of Cleveland come from industry and transportation.
Smokestacks.
Yes, that would be an example, yes.
Emission.
Yes, so emissions, so that could be anything from a dry cleaner to a gas station to the largest industries in the community like the steel mills. Those are all potential sources of emission. So for like a smaller facility that might be in one of those wards, maybe they're using an outdated boiler. and we can help them with offsetting the cost of that with a new boiler. So those are the major sources. In terms of transportation, I know that there is other work going on in the city to address some of our transportation overall. But the biggest thing that we would be looking at that we feel is enforceable is with the vehicle idling. That is something that we would feel that we can address. So transportation is definitely a big concern, but it's not the only concern.
What about RTA? What about them?
We have not brought them into this conversation in terms of specifics, but there's definitely, if you look at like NOACA and the work that they do for mode shift and getting people on buses, that is definitely another thing that helps support reducing emissions in the area.
Have you monitored them to see what RTA, how much emissions they, when they go to the community? Have you monitored them?
No, and that's part of one of the challenges that we also have is that vehicle emissions are not, they're not something that's permitted. They're not something, so if a facility submits a permit application, that's not something that is a part of the permit process. And so that's why what we would like to do is have that permit process include that information. There are some, it is indirectly looked at because we do have permits for roadways or parking lots, but this would be more specific. How many vehicles do you have? What are their vehicle classes? And more specific detail about those sources.
You write this down. Look at RTA. Also, if we're going to champion this cause, look at the city of Cleveland. Look at our garbage trucks.
Yeah.
Look at when we put asphalt down, public works. Look at those things as well. Look at the county,
Right.
what they're doing. And if you want to bring them in, we can do that as well. Because, the thing about the city of Cleveland, majority of our workers, they're on the road. Doing whatever. They're on the road. It could be dealing with health. It could be dealing with public works. We have a lot of vehicles. And so when we do our vehicle checklist, you see, before you take over a vehicle, there's a checklist that you do for vehicle maintenance. And you look over the entire vehicle, but the emission part should also be on that checklist.
So I agree with that. And I know our Office of Sustainability has done a lot of work with the city's entire fleet. I don't know any specifics at this point in terms of like what the next steps are with the City of Cleveland's fleet, but I agree with you because the City of Cleveland's fleet is a contributor, and there are things that we could be looking at for the technology of our vehicles that we operate and potentially have some impact there.
Yeah, we could look at fleet management, because in fleet management, they monitor and control, and that may not be on their checklist. However, we could look at that with fleet management.
Right.
That's over all the fleets with police cars and, going out. And then the county also have fleet management as
Yeah.
well as, and these big industries, then we could take what we have and what we're doing here as best practices. And then when we go to other companies and look at their fleet management as well.
I agree, Councilman, I agree with you. And I think that is a way for us to start addressing another major contributor in the community, because it is an industry, but it's transportation. And fleets, those are, that is the place to start looking in terms of those big reductions for transportation locally.
Yeah, you want to monitor and control those things. And so when you find out there's an issue in Ward 9, what do? You alert the people, or you try to find out? Do you put monitors in the ward, and then the monitors would tell us, and the monitors are connected? How does that work?
Under this proposal, because we did just spend, so for the Clean and CLE project, we did just deploy an additional 30 air sensors throughout the city of Cleveland. Under this, the way I envision it working is that, yes, we would be doing additional community engagement. Could that lead to additional monitoring? It potentially could. It could lead to more detailed understanding of the specific sources in the neighborhood, which there might be existing enforcement opportunities, or there might already be facilities that are outside of compliance. It would just be very dependent on what is that specific problem.
Do we still have authority in other cities when we deal with it, the environments. For example, in Ward 9 is close to East Cleveland. And I'm not picking on East Cleveland, but you have surrounding entering suburbs, all right? But when you cross the line, they might be the issue and the concern. Because, see, it's not just broken down in the wards, it's neighborhoods. Something that might happen in Glenville might be the same issue and concerns. This in Collinwood. You know, you see what I'm saying? Because, I mean, those are artificial boundaries. Ward 9, Ward 10. I mean, it should be wherever the issue and concern is at.
Yes, and we do still have authority throughout the county through our Ohio EPA grant, but everything that we're proposing is specific to the city of Cleveland. But you're absolutely right, because there are communities, there's East Cleveland, there's Newburgh Heights, there's Maple Heights. These communities have presented some of the same concerns that we're talking about today, and they're just a street over. So
There you go.
the problems or the solutions that we're trying to implement could have co-benefits for those neighborhoods as well.
But what if the threat lies in, because only reason I'm saying East Cleveland, because it's my next door neighbor, but what does the threat lie in East Cleveland? You see, your monitor is not going to say, let me stop here because this is Ward 9. The threat might be there because it's, you know, they're integrated really together.
Sir, and yes, we still have our authority through Ohio EPA, and we would be very willing to work with their administrators, like if, when it comes to something like an air sensor, if that would make sense for that neighborhood, we'd be still willing to work with them on that. But we do still have Ohio EPA, we still have our education, outreach. There's a lot of other ways that we could still work with those neighborhoods.
What I'm talking about, if the issue is in East Cleveland or in Euclid, is there a way to, let's say if there's burning, like you mentioned, burning trash, that we talk with them and we try to stop that issue from happening so it won't encroach over into Cleveland?
Yes, I believe there is absolutely an opportunity for that. And so if it's coming from the burning, now the city of Cleveland open burning restrictions are stricter than the state of Ohio, but there are still open burning restrictions. So we communicate with the other municipalities, we communicate with the residents that are in those neighborhoods, but that is mostly through our authority through Ohio EPA.
So you look at the smokestacks, so what are the companies are saying to help us with this?
So the industry response has been mixed. You know, the industry, they are concerned about increased fees and they are concerned about increased regulation. So at the large level, that's where we've heard concerns from industry members. Mostly they have stated they understand why we're doing what we're doing, but if it is an additional cost to them, that is a point of concern.
Yeah, but you know what they're doing, they're going to pass the cost on to the people that's purchasing their merchandise anyway. So if the fees go up, those are small fees. If the fees go up, if it's $2 or $3, or what they will do is they'll figure out a way how to deal with the fees in their budget. That's exactly what they'll do. If it's doing a product redesign or whatever the case may be, they'll figure out a way how to deal with that. That's the cost of doing business. You know, they don't like the regulations because they don't want more regulations to come. But if you don't regulate, it would get worse.
Yes, and we are looking at the totality of industry. So we're not trying to target, and we're also looking at where is there the biggest potential for harm to human health. And that is where we want to start the work that we do, is where's there the largest emissions and where are they in the most vulnerable neighborhoods. And so yes, that is the cost. It's been, as I mentioned, 2003 was the last time that we revised the fee structure. So it's been over 20 years since we've revised the fee structure.
Got it. Now, you'll set a fund up for $300,000, and then you'll pull from the fund for what? For the cost of labor? Or are you pulling from the fund for what kind of resources?
Yes, so we anticipate that it would be both administrative, so we might need an additional staff person to help administer the program, and then the other resources could be setting up a fund where facilities that do want to try to reduce their emissions, they would be eligible to apply for a grant. We would have a fund set up for community members to apply for grants and funding, and then also there would be some discretion section where we're looking at projects that we're operating. So for example, we currently have the electric lawnmower rebate program.
Yes.
That is a small program, but it has had the impact of removing almost 600 vehicles from the roadways. So are there programs like that that we can build off of and have a bigger impact? So those are the three main areas that we're looking that how we would utilize those funds.
Yeah, you know, I understand electric lawnmowers. What about the stoves? Mm-hmm. You know, they say gas stoves is a high probability that it causes asthma.
Yes, yes. Well, and that's where the indoor air quality programming really comes in, and work that Yvette has done over the years. And there is the program that's being run through Metro Health that's offering the electric stoves in place of gas stoves. So we do want to also look at what is happening inside the home. We haven't specifically said stoves for this proposal, but that is an example of something you could do in the home to reduce emissions.
Yeah, you should give us or Dr. So we could put it in our newsletters, and we could also put it in newsletters for your outreach workers, so that because you can't do it. See, you can't. Let's say you hire 10 outreach workers. Well, they can't do it alone. But if you educate us, then we can help out. And we can put it in the newsletters, and we can help champion what we're trying to do to benefit all of us. Do you agree?
Absolutely, I agree. It's through together that we can have a collective impact. And by working with the council people, working with CDCs, we're able to expand our impact that we have on a community.
So you could give us the information. Reach out to Joan Mezzaline, and she'll put it in our newsletters.
Yes.
So that we can let the residents know.
Thank you.
All right. And then what was the other thing I was going to mention to you? Because I like this, what we're doing. What you're really doing is prevention.
Yes.
You're doing prevention.
Yes.
What is the biggest cause of the, is it emission from the vehicles? And what did you learn by looking at other cities that's doing something like this?
Yeah, so this work for me personally started in 2019. I went to Newark, New Jersey, along with a couple other city departments and nonprofits to look at a cumulative impact and environmental justice ordinance that they had put in place. And the types of application requirements that we are proposing are modeled after the work that they have done. I know one of the concerns that was brought up during those meetings, though, with Newark, New Jersey, is that the residents wanted to see the regulation to have more teeth to it. They wanted it to be something more than just information. But it helped us set up, like, what type of information do we need? There are other municipalities that have trigger points that if an emission unit exceeds a certain level, then they could go through steps to deny the permit. The city of Chicago, the health impact report that we're proposing, they did something like that where they have a Chicago air quality health impact report that identifies in a similar fashion that we propose. So they were able to, I think it was in 2020, there was a major permit decision that that background information was vital in how the city proceeded. So we've learned a lot about how are other permits issued, what are concerns that residents bring to the table. Cumulative impacts, I want to say there's about 20 states that currently have a cumulative impact state legislation. Municipalities is a little bit harder to track, though, but there are a handful of municipalities.
You know what? In the long run, if you want people to change their behavior, however, in the long run, you might have to look at but you should study triggers anyway in your evaluation process. Are you guys studying it?
Yes, we do. We do look at it under the way the language is currently written. It's under certain levels of emissions, but that is a concern that we've had residents bring to us during these community meetings, is they want to see us take additional steps beyond what we're proposing.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, I'm there and I understand it, but you should study triggers, because how you know where you're at if you don't? You're right here. And then you mentioned a risk analysis, which falls into triggers. But if we're going up here, it got to be systems of measurements so you know where you're at. So if you need to go up to another level, then you have supporting evidence to show why.
Yes, and I think that that would be, definitely be something that we include, even if it's not in the health impact report. These are the types of things that we'll learn as we go through the process.
Did you study their, what they were doing in Newark? Did you bring it here with you to look at their, what is that? I'm looking at their evaluation process?
For Newark, New Jersey? Yes, I did. I looked at their entire legislation. I looked at what are they asking for. And their legislation looks at request information on more than just the air pollution, whereas right now what we're proposing is we would just be requesting information on air sources. Theirs also goes into looking at water discharge and other environmental conditions, whereas ours is specifically for air quality.
We'll look at it later. We have the triggers, then we might can amend it in the long run. So we'll see what's what. Then you have the supporting evidence. Any other, yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Well, first of all, you've come many times to Ward 12, as you know, with having the steel mill. We are a hot commodity for this issue, and I know a lot of our residents have appreciated the air quality team coming out. So thank you. I had one question around the truck idling. I mean, I've experienced with you guys too that it's so hard to enforce because essentially by the time you get someone out there, the truck's not idling all day. And so I was wondering what you described about enforcing through the property owner. Will that actually fix that issue? Because won't we have the same thing that we can't really enforce unless we see it? I mean, how are we going to fix the actual issue of getting eyes on the trucks that are idling to effectively enforce? Through the chair.
Yes, through the chair to the councilwoman. That's a fantastic question, and I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. But what we do see is that if we get a complaint from a resident, typically it's something where this is happening for like an hour. And by that time, yes, it would be something that would be prioritized that we get out there to do. The other challenge that we as the Division of Air Quality has is that we don't have any regulatory authority to fix the issue. So when we get a concern from a resident about air quality, there goes the air.
There, that was the air. That was the air.
Yes. But so when we get a complaint, like the only tool that we currently have in our toolbox for idling is to try to talk to the offender and try to explain the rule to them and try to get them to comply. This gives us regulatory authority.
Yeah.
And so we do see it would be repeat offenders, and also this is something that would be new. So we would want to we would have a pretty extensive education campaign over the next year to inform businesses of the rule change. And this is across the board.
Yeah. Okay, I really appreciate it. I wonder too, is there any element, I think something that we often are looking for is just like someone to go on site and like talk to the property owner, even if they're not catching the trucks idling. Do you think that could be a component of this? Just sort of showing up and saying, hey, we're not catching the trucks right now, but we're hearing about this. We're concerned about it. Can we give you some information? Is that going to be a component of this as well?
Yes, I see it would be.
All right, great. Thank you.
Outreach workers. How many outreach workers are we going to have?
So the current outreach team are 7 staff, myself, Yvette, and then 5 additional staff members. We have requested an additional health outreach specialist to be added under the 2025 budget. So that would bring up our staffing. You did ask about administration though, and administrative costs. I do think that because of the complexity of what we're proposing, that we might need to ask for an additional staff member to help us administer this program.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I also just want to flag for the committee. I have to head to a meeting on lead in about 15 minutes. So when I leave early, I apologize.
And I want to talk with you about their lead because I want them to come to the next hearings. Let them know so we know where they're at.
Okay.
Are they executing on it?
All right. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other questions? Councilmember Slife?
Yes, in no particular order. First of all, since you had said that these haven't been updated since the 1970s, can you kind of give a 30-second characterization of how the air quality has improved since the 1970s? Not because there isn't more we can do, but I think you see the old pictures of gross Cleveland, and it's worth reiterating.
Yes, I would just say is that there have been federal rules that have addressed some of the big ticket concerns and things that are happening on a regional basis. Since the 1977 Clean Air Act, there's been about a 90% reduction in air pollution. The problem is that reduction has not been felt the same in every single neighborhood. So air quality has significantly improved, but we've done all the easy things. Now it's time to do the hard stuff.
Okay. Do you have, I mean, and you have maps, so maybe it's possible, but is there a way to kind of say if, like, where in the city have we hit that 90%, where in the city have we only hit, like, to kind of show that? I'd be interested in the numerical side of that. Maybe that's a follow, because that sounds like a data crunch.
That is, yes, we can look into that.
Just back to vehicles, and I think we got there initially, but I think when the chairperson brought up like RTA, to me that's about RTA vehicles idling, and like RTA vehicles idling across the street every single day. And like I appreciate that there's stuff about vehicles idling on private property, but to me I think there's also a problem with vehicles idling on our city street, period, right? And what I don't understand is that I've always been told maybe it's different for vehicles, but if you're idling for a minute, it actually makes sense to turn off the vehicle. And when I was overseas, I was in Asia, and they had the lights were so long that the light would turn red, and there's a countdown from 300, and everyone would turn off their car because there was no point in idling for that length of time. You're just burning gas unnecessarily. And to me, as much of a PSA of like you're just wasting gas.
I think more waste.
Yeah, it's like aside from, it's just wasteful from all angles. So if we could focus on that, but I do think that there are like city vehicles, public sector vehicles idling in the streets, and I worry that we have our own credibility issue when we're trying to enforce something that we are doing and other public entities are doing as well.
Right, Councilman.
So, as it relates to the increases in the fee and the idea of using that as a way to offset improvements that people could make, could you elaborate more on how you arrived at these fees? I'm thinking almost that if I'm a manufacturer and I'm now being charged with this fee, and for someone to say, well, but you can, the fees we're collecting, we can use to offset that. I'm like, or I could just be incentivized to do it. So I guess I'm almost thinking, is there like a carrot and a stick? Is there a way that we can rebate people's fees if they actually make the improvements, instead of asking them to basically pay into a fund that's going to distribute those dollars more across the board, but it would actually maybe increase the cost of having to make the improvement at the individual level?
Councilman, that is a great question. And I am definitely support trying to find ways to incentivize. And the first incentive is that the lower your emission levels are, then the lower your fees. But if there's another structure that we could put in place, we're certainly open to revisiting how to incentivize, because that is a wonderful point.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm anticipating the argument of, well, I could have afforded that if you hadn't increased the fee. That's the money that I would have used. And I'm not saying that that's always going to be a credible argument, but I can sort of anticipate it coming down the pike. My final thing, and I guess this is my blasphemous question, open burning. Have there been any conversations, and I will say that I have had some conversations before you were on board, I think in the previous administration, of just changing our laws as it relates to open burning. And I'm specifically talking about like recreational fire pits and yards. It is unenforceable. People mistake that it is a fire prevention issue, not that it's an air quality issue. And I think if we go back to the point that we are tied to laws that are dating back to the 1970s, I couldn't be convinced that someone having a fire pit and roasting some marshmallows is what's contributing to our air quality and asthma issues. I think it's relatively minor in comparison. And I've done a lot of research in other cities, including like Cleveland Heights, says like, you can't do this within a certain distance of buildings, and you can't do it under these weather conditions or high winds. And instead of, what happens is, because this happens in the evening generally when air quality or health officials are not available, the fire department gets called out and their job is just to put out fires. No one ever gets issued a citation for it or anything. We're scrambling money and having this $1 million apparatus respond to something that's not even their workflow, and wasting money for something that I do think is sort of innocuous. So I think my position on it is pretty clear. and I'd love to talk to other members to see if that's universally shared. But has that been discussed within the Division of Air Quality, and can you speak to actually the level to which that sort of open burning contributes to air quality? Honestly, a charcoal grill seems like it would be worse than having a little fire pit burning some sticks.
Yes, to speak to that question, we respond to a lot of open burning complaints where we're seeing people burning furniture. We're seeing them burning treated wood. Treated wood is treated with arsenic. We have seen businesses use open burning as a cheaper garbage disposal method. So I take your point regarding, is there a better way that we can rewrite the open burning? And perhaps there is. And I haven't heard of the provision regarding like wind patterns or under certain conditions. But I do think it is still an important tool. I have myself written violations for this. And how much does it result in reductions? It's for the facilities. We've had cease and desists. Residential, it is a little trickier.
Sure. And yeah, if you're burning treated wood and you're at a facility trying to just avoid disposal fees and stuff, I cite them all day long,
Yes.
Multiple times. But I do get in the summer, I do get a lot of calls from people that are, my neighbor has a fire pit and just bluntly, it sounds fun to me. Can I join? And it's just so flagrantly violated, that portion of the law. People they're available at the store. People don't realize they're even doing anything wrong. I would be interested in getting a little more of a reality check, and if anything, again, saying like, you can do this, but you can't do it in drought conditions, and you can't do it in high winds, and you can't do it within 10 feet of a structure and things, and actually come up with something that is understandable and I think more enforceable than just this blanket equating a residential fire pit with the open burning of furniture.
Sure.
So we can circle back on that, but it's I think it's something that I'm interested in, obviously.
Yeah, listen.
I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Deborah Gray.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, appreciate you. Yes, and thank you for coming in today. I don't want to echo Councilman Seif about what he said about open burning. Open burning, is that, would that be different than the bomb, of firing, how they go and buy the actual equipment and then they set the fire, then they cover it? What's the difference with bonfire versus open burning?
Bonfires are a type of open burn.
Through
Through the chair to the councilwoman. Bonfires are a type of open burning, and that is something that through Ohio EPA rules, residents can apply for and get a permit to do that, but they have to be able to meet certain conditions to be able to do that. And there are still restrictions on what they can burn, but yes, I think part of this conversation is around just like the backyard fire pit just sitting around. That is, of course, that's smaller, and if they're burning clean wood that has not been pressure treated and they don't have other items that they're burning, then that is something that is currently permitted, and we're not proposing to remove that.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Just have a couple more questions. I know last year sometime when the health department came to the table, it was air quality was spoken on, throughout the neighborhood per se, on certain incidents like burning houses. When a house get caught on fire, that really invades the environment, the air quality. It's horrible. People cannot breathe, smoke is everywhere, and it lingers in the air quality, especially with the senior citizens. They tend to call because they're dealing with a lot of chronic illness, per se, and we know that we cannot chair to the director?
No.
Okay.
Chief of Air Pollution Outreach.
Chief of Air Pollution, okay? And we know we just have to wait till all that settles. But what is pertaining to Pertaining to the question again that Councilman Sight had asked, what has been done between 1977 up to now dealing with air quality pertaining to houses getting caught on fire and pertaining to the air quality? How is that adjusted per se? If that's a good way of asking the question.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I'm not familiar of any specific action that has been taken for residential burnings that are building. I haven't seen any models on how to address that because like my understanding of what you're asking is in the immediate aftermath of that, the 24, 48 hours after, what steps can be taken. And I am not familiar with anything that's coming off the top of my head right now that addresses that specific issue. When it comes to like the other question regarding the improvements over the years, those improvements have related specifically to vehicles on the road, and they have also related to the types of controls that industry has, and that's where we've seen those improvements. So this residential question, that I'm not familiar with anything.
Okay, all right, thank you. I can understand that. I can relate to that, Chair. To the chief again, because I'm asking that because of the burning houses, you have the open lots, you have the open lots that cause a lot of that deal with a lot of lead in the open lots, a lot of debris, a lot of trash. When you get that combination in the air, you get that bad odor on top of it. And it's a really bad lingering odor. So due to that, how often do the Air Quality Control Department come out and just test the air from time to time so the residents can feel some type of safe and security of their breathing the air in their community? Because that happens. I know myself, Director McGarland has come out into the community himself, and he understands my question because we have these conversations, and he actually comes out and walks the ward sometimes and view the trash and the debris that compiles throughout the community. And but I think I asked that question before pertaining to that. Has that been frequently checked from time to time to check the air quality in our community, Chair to the Chief?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we do have a couple programs in place, aside from our regulatory network, that we can provide residents an opportunity to test their air. One program is called the CAMP program, and that is an air quality canister that has been depressurized. And basically, we give it to the resident. It's about 2 gallons. And when they observe the problem, they can open it up. That draws the air in. And then we send that down to US EPA, and they run a toxicology report on that. So that would be specific, like if you have concerns related to odors. We also have a program in place where we have mobile air monitors where our outreach team can go out and walk the neighborhood with you and collect data on specific types of pollutants.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that is a program that we offer. And I mean, that's regardless of what happens with this proposal. It's something that we can do.
Wow.
And then we also do have emergency situations. So if there is a situation where there is a concern, where there is like a big fire, there are situations where we'll take those same canisters that we have for the resident, and that'll be a part of going out to that site to collect air quality information. So there are a couple things that are in place. It's not something that we typically would do like after a burning of a house, but if there's recommendations of how we could incorporate something like that, we're certainly open to suggestions on it.
Oh, wow, that's terrific information.
Just take you know, I took your director for 2.5-hour walk through my neighborhood. He'll tell you, isn't that true?
Yes.
2.5 hours, we didn't stop. We walked. So, I mean, you asked for it. You know, be careful what you ask for. You might get it.
I want to get it.
We can definitely
We
do
want to
it.
get it. Thank you. Thank you. And I have one more, just one last question. Thank you for that. That's great information. Perhaps we could get that in our newsletter so our constituents can know what they can also call and ask for through. Can they call and ask for that through 311, Chair to the Chief?
Oh, I was just going to.
to add that we were in your ward in the fall.
Yes, I
And we
remember
came
you,
and we
yes.
heard from the chief of police there, and he told us that he already goes walking. So we told him about the program, and he said he was interested. We knew that the weather was the timing was going to get dark early, so we said maybe perhaps for spring of 2025.
You came to the safety meeting.
Yes.
Yes, I
So
remember you,
that we
yes.
could come out and do that with him because he already goes out, and we wouldn't be alone. So
Yes.
we're okay with doing that.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate that. We'll get together and set something up.
Okay.
Or when you're able to come out.
Sure.
All right, thank you. And then one last question.
The
You just,
complaint hotline number for residents, if they want to use that instead of 311, they can call us directly at 216-664-7442.
okay.
That they can leave a message on that number 24 hours. And I just wanted to add to remember that we have this monitoring network throughout Cuyahoga County. So at all times, the data is being collected to monitor the quality of our air at all times. And then now we just have these additional sensors that'll be placed more localized into the neighborhoods to give us a better reading, and you can access that data on that site. So at any given time, you want to know what is the air quality in your neighborhood, you can go here.
Okay, thank you. And that was my chair, and your name or?
Yvette?
Yvette, yes, I remember you at the safety meeting,
Yes.
and you did an excellent
Oh,
job.
thank you.
Excellent job, very thorough, and it's been so long ago, it kind of slipped my mind, but thank you for reminding me of that. And matter of fact, Chair, to Yvette, that was really my last question, was asking about the difference between monitoring and the sensors
Yes.
that is placed in the, in the community. But thank you for that.
So the monitors are federally regulated by US EPA. They are very advanced, and the sensors are less technical, but they still will show us a picture of what's going on in the community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
That we need to know. Something else I want to ask you is, yeah, by putting that in our newsletters, then they'll know with your outreach, because we can help out with the outreach, walking, putting in the newsletters, whatever else you think that we might need. Christine, you could reach out to me or Dr. David Margolius. He and I talk all the time. I mean, it's be early in the morning or whatever the case may be. He and I, we're talking, so you can let me know, then I'll let all the other council members know. Council lady?
Thank you to the chair, to the team here. Good morning. How are you? Good, good, good. Just a quick question. Will we be doing another air quality week this year?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes, we will have more air quality meetings this year. We'll specifically,
Just a clarification. No, air quality week. The awareness week.
yeah. Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes, we will be acknowledging Air Quality Awareness Week. One of the things that we're looking at for that this year is potentially doing a tree giveaway through Western Reserve Land Conservancy. And then if there's other activities, we would certainly be open to doing other things.
Through the chair to the team here, do we have the date of that yet? Okay. Do the chair to the team here. The reason why I'm asking, and Yvette know why I'm asking, we are supposed to, oh goodness. So my first year coming in, I was really inspired by our work and putting together the Air Quality Awareness Week. And it was there that inspired, like, okay, we need to get a definition for environmental justice. We have it, so that is the deadline. I'm putting us on the clock this year to actually make sure that we actually do the legislation to get the definition of environmental justice so that everybody here in the city of Cleveland will be working from the same framework. And I know there have been many community members who have been working. They gave us all the information. So, Ms. Vet, we got a date to get this done. Yes, I know. So I just wanted to put it on the record, and we got like 2 months to get it done. So let's get to work. So thank you all so much for all that you do.
Thank you very much. Any, Councilmember Starr, did you have anything before we close it out?
Nope.
All right. Any other thing you want to give to us?
Through the chair to the council members today, thank you very much. I am very open to answering any additional questions you have. So if you leave today's meeting and you're like, you know what, we just didn't quite address that, feel free to send those recommendations, those questions to us. And if there are things with the air code that I did not talk about today, that we didn't talk about, that you think would be good for your constituents, we're still open to those recommendations and those ideas. But thank you very much for having us today.
Okay,
Council
welcome.
Lady? Okay, so when will you give us your proposal?
To the chair, we're looking at doing that in March.
And March will be good. That's when the budget hearings should be completed. And then you can give us the proposal, and then we could bring you back here perhaps in April after we process things over. Is there a month? It's a month almost for everything. For back to the idling. I have an issue with the culture garden, especially in the spring, with idle vehicles. Okay, and I don't know if it's correlated to cancer, whatever the case may be. I know that there are some non-idling signs around the Italian garden, around the British garden. There's a lot of those gardens, because what happens, people stop, busloads, you got it, right? When they're having a wedding, they take pictures. But as the council member Slife was narrating to you, they keep their cars and their vehicles idling. Although we have a non-idling sign up there, Councilman, but they do it anyway. It's a habit. So I don't know what to do about that. As soon as April hit, April, May, June, the marriage months, man, my phone blow up with those idling.
To the chair, yes, that is actually a concern that we hear from residents as well when we go out into the community, is specifically around the cultural gardens on MLK Boulevard. I don't have a specific solution for that occurrence, but I agree with you that it's a problem, and we're open to ideas about how we could be addressing it.
Yeah, because the residents, they call me and they hollering at me. They want me to go out there and make them stop. Make them stop doing it. Councilman, if it was in front of your house, you would get out there and make them stop. So, because they reach out to us because we're the face of the city, and they reach out to us to be police officers, to be building the housing, to be the health department, to stop people from idling, stop what I'm doing, get out there in my car, pull over, tell the wedding party, don't idle there, and they look out the window at me, and I'm the idling patrol person.
Yeah.
So we have to have some kind of systems. Yeah, you got it. Some kind of systems in place to give them tickets. Is there a way we can give the authority over to what police we have?
Already have the authority.
They do? We don't have too many police officers. We don't. Because they're going from one incident to the next incident, to the next event, to the next event. So, but if they can, maybe if we could do some community policing or whatever the case may be, they could ticket. Yes,
You have a question
Council
on it
Lady.
through the chair to the team here. So based on the statute, this is criminal or civil?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I believe it's a civil violation.
Okay, so through the chair to the team, and I guess really to our council members, could we look at expanding those who would have the legislative authority to offer an actual civil fine? I mean, again, this is something more for a brainstorm of understanding the capacity. I know we have building and housing that's on board. But again, I just really looking at our public servants who, based on, just a need and something that we know we need to look at to improve our overall air quality. And again, I'm just putting this out. This is a brainstorming that's currently in the committee. I really think that is something that we need to do to be able to look at our capacity to be able to, again, beef this up. So just something to
Understand
consider.
what you're saying. It's like cross-training a worker. So building the housing, they could do it. Police, they could do it as well. And whoever is out there that, because
We currently get residential complaints for idling as well. So again, the authority rests with the City of Cleveland Police to answer that. And it's really hard for our like enforcement specialists because we don't have the authority to tell that neighbor, turn your car off. So I understand what you're saying to expand it. And now I know Christine and I have chatted about, it'll be kind of hard to put that authority in the hands of our enforcement specialists. But I understand what you're saying. We do need to have another mechanism because should that resident be exposed to this neighbor's idling just because we don't have the authority to stop it, we tell them to call the police and then they continue to tell us that they're
Do you guys tell them to call the councilman?
We don't
Because
say
sometimes
council, we do
the
say
police will say,
311.
call the councilman, call the councilman, call the
So
councilman.
can I just want to, just for,
They do.
through the chair to the team, so for clarification, again, I want us to imagine the world that we want and look at the opportunities, even if it's a thing of no, not necessarily stopping a person from doing the idling, to actually have someone to actually issue a ticket, right? To actually, we want people to change their behaviors, and if that requires and moves people to have a conversation, what has been happening, we've observed it, that's all I'm saying. And maybe there may be an opportunity to look at other incentivizing change behavior and enforcement options that may be available, just other practices across the country. That's what I was lifting up. And again, looking beyond our traditional law enforcement, because this is a civil infraction. And again, just about again, depending on how we envision it, well, maybe there could be, some of our public sanitation workers. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, again, like to really just grabs, again, because we know how we have a capacity issue, right? And I don't think it's helpful just to continue to layer on everything on public safety when this is just a different thing that I don't think it would be the best use in time or even based on the expertise of our law enforcement to do this, looking at other bodies or groups of public servants that we can look at interdisciplinary skills that can then help in this regards. So that's what I wanted to make sure I looked at.
That's well
Thank you.
said. Yeah, I see that. So when you're looking at it, what she just narrated, matter of fact, it's beautiful. You could look down what other places could help as well. You want to keep the tickets in the police hands, but other you can cross-train people.
Yes, to the chair. The idea of being able to collaborate and find other opportunities to address these issues, we're absolutely open to. Because, I think as we're saying, there is a capacity issue, and we understand why it's such a hard thing to enforce. And so I do think that we need to take your words, is to think outside of the box with this issue, because it is a problem, it's ongoing. But we also, it's not something that we could take on the full authority for, and that's why, within the proposal, we did look at what do we think we have the capacity to do under the current conditions, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of looking for a solution.
Before I close, I'm thinking about even how to use youth. If you had a little coloring book or a magazine that can go into some of the schools talking about the environment, because a lot of people, especially Americans, we don't think about the environment as a whole, but we need it. You only have this planet here, and we can destroy it, but not in a scary way, but to educate children about the environment through some kind of coloring book. And what they do, they go home, the children, and when they have time with their fathers, their mothers, their aunties, they give teachable moments. I know my grandchildren, they do me like that.
Yes.
So to the chair, we have attempted to reach out to CMSD to start some anti-idling campaigns. A couple years ago, they were supposed to hire a safety officer, and we were going to be working with them. We have some information available to create these type of educational opportunities, but they did not hire that staff person, and the person that I was communicating with said that they weren't able to issue me somebody that was dedicated to helping us roll this out. So if you have some ends with maybe one school, we could start with one school and do those teachable moments, because we already have curriculum around anti-idling.
Let me have the curriculum. I have a meeting on the 24th of this month with Dr. Morgan, and I could put that on my to-do list if you give me what you have.
Okay.
because, you know, we're discussing some issues and concerns. And you can give it to me. I'm meeting with him at 9 a.m.
Okay.
But if you give it to your boss, David, I'll put it in my toolbox when I sit down with the doctor, and we'll look at some schools, and I'll give you feedback
Thank you.
on maybe later that day or the 25th of February. All right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? With that, the Health Committee is adjourned. Thank you.